The Mortal Kombat movie is honestly a blast. Video game adaptations usually have a pretty rough track record, so expectations tend to be low going in, but this one actually delivers where it matters. The biggest highlight is the action. It leans into what Mortal Kombat is known for instead of holding back. The fight scenes are intense, fast-paced, and choreographed in a way that keeps them engaging from start to finish. You can tell a lot of effort went into making each matchup feel distinct rather than repetitive. It also doesn't shy away from the brutality the franchise is famous for. The inclusion of signature moves and fatalities gives it that authentic feel, like it actually respects the source material instead of watering it down. Overall, it just feels like a movie that knows what it is and commits to it. Instead of trying to reinvent everything, it focuses on delivering solid action and fan service, and that's what makes it stand out compared to a lot of other video game movies. The actors all do a really solid job with their roles too, which helps a lot when you're dealing with characters that people already know so well from the games. With something like Mortal Kombat, fans already have a clear idea of how these characters should look, move, and act, so getting that right matters. And the cast really commits. They don't play it halfway or treat the material like a joke. They lean into the personalities, the intensity, and even the over-the-top elements that are part of what makes Mortal Kombat what it is. It's also just cool seeing these iconic characters brought to life in a live-action setting. Moves, outfits, and rivalries that you've only seen in-game suddenly feel more real, especially when the performances actually sell those moments instead of just going through the motions. That combination of committed acting and faithful character portrayal goes a long way. It helps bridge the gap between game and film so it doesn't just feel like a loose adaptation, it actually feels connected to the source material. The powers, environments, and supernatural elements are handled with a level of care that really helps Mortal Kombat stand out visually. A big part of that comes down to how clean and intentional everything looks on screen. The effects aren't just flashy for the sake of it. They're designed to feel grounded within the world of the movie, even when things get over the top. When Sub-Zero uses his ice abilities, for example, it doesn't just look like generic CGI. You can see the texture, the weight, and the way the ice interacts with the environment, whether it's freezing weapons, forming barriers, or changing the flow of a fight. Scorpion's Hellfire is another great example. It has a distinct visual identity, with its color, movement, and intensity all reinforcing who he is as a character. It doesn't feel random or interchangeable with other effects. It feels tied specifically to him, which makes it more memorable and impactful. The environments also play a big role in selling these powers. Different locations aren't just backdrops. They actively enhance what's happening in the scene. Cold, dark settings amplify Sub-Zero's presence, while more chaotic or fiery environments complement Scorpion and other characters. That contrast helps make each scene feel visually distinct instead of blending together. Another thing that works well is restraint. The movie doesn't overload every single moment with effects. When powers are used, they stand out more because they're not constant. That balance keeps things from feeling cluttered or exhausting to watch. Overall, the supernatural elements feel purposeful. They're not just there to look cool, they're integrated into the fights, the characters, and the tone of the movie. That's what makes them feel polished instead of cheap or distracting. The costumes and overall look of the characters are another area where Mortal Kombat really gets things right. One of the hardest parts of adapting a video game is translating those iconic designs into live action without them looking cheap or overdone. Game outfits are often exaggerated, stylized, or not meant to function in a real-world setting, so when movies try to copy them too literally, they can end up looking like cosplay rather than something believable. This movie manages to avoid that. The designs stay very close to what fans recognize, but they're adjusted just enough to feel grounded. The materials look practical, the textures have weight, and the outfits feel like something the characters could actually wear in a real fight. You still get the signature colors, masks, and silhouettes, but they're refined in a way that fits the tone of the film. Sub-Zero's armor, for example, looks functional and intimidating rather than flashy. It has a layered, almost tactical feel to it, which makes him come across as more threatening. Scorpion's design keeps the classic elements fans expect, but updates them with more detail and realism, so it feels like a natural evolution rather than a direct copy. Even smaller details, like how the costumes move during fights or how they react to damage, help sell the illusion. They don't look stiff or artificial. They feel like part of the world. That balance is what makes it work so well. The characters are instantly recognizable, but they also feel believable within the movie's setting. A lot of adaptations struggle with that, either going too far into realism and losing the identity, or sticking too close to the source and ending up with something that looks out of place. This one lands right in the middle. The movie also does a solid job of leaning into key rivalries instead of treating them like throwaway matchups, and that really helps certain moments hit harder in Mortal Kombat. A big example is the legacy conflict tied to Scorpion. It's not just a random fight thrown in for spectacle. There's history behind it, and the movie actually takes time to show where that conflict comes from and why it matters. That gives the confrontation a sense of purpose instead of it just being another action scene. Because of that build-up, when those characters finally clash, it feels more personal. There's tension going into the fight, not just excitement. You understand what's at stake beyond just winning or losing, which makes the outcome feel more meaningful. That approach carries over to other matchups too. Even when the movie doesn't spend as much time developing every rivalry, it still tries to frame fights as more than just random encounters. There's usually some kind of connection, motivation, or imbalance that gives the scene direction. It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference. When fights are tied to character relationships and past conflicts, they naturally feel more important. Instead of just watching action for the sake of it, you're watching moments that actually push the story and characters forward. The movie is clearly setting the stage for something bigger, but it doesn't get bogged down in the process, which is something Mortal Kombat handles surprisingly well. A lot of setup-heavy movies fall into the trap of over-explaining everything. They stop the story to dump lore, rules, and background details all at once, which can slow the pacing to a crawl. This one avoids that by introducing the world in smaller, more digestible pieces as things move forward. You learn about the stakes, the characters, and the broader conflict naturally through what's happening, instead of being hit with long, drawn-out explanations. The movie trusts the audience enough to pick things up as it goes, which helps keep the momentum going. It also knows when to move on. Once a concept is introduced, it doesn't linger on it longer than necessary. It gives you just enough context to understand what's happening, then shifts back into the action or character moments. That balance keeps the pacing tight without making the story feel rushed. At the same time, it still lays the groundwork for future installments. You can tell there's a bigger world and bigger conflicts coming, but the movie doesn't try to cover everything at once. It focuses on setting up the essentials while leaving room to expand later. So instead of feeling like a long setup with no payoff, it feels like a focused introduction that keeps things moving while still hinting at what's next. The darker, more serious tone is a really strong fit for Mortal Kombat, and it helps the whole experience feel more aligned with what the franchise has become over time. Instead of undercutting tense moments with constant jokes or trying to soften everything for a broader audience, the movie lets scenes play out with weight. When something brutal happens, it actually feels brutal. When there's tension between characters, it isn't immediately brushed off with humor. That restraint goes a long way in making the world feel more grounded and intense. It also matches the tone of the newer games, which lean heavily into darker themes, higher stakes, and more serious storytelling. The movie reflects that shift instead of going for a lighter or more campy approach, which helps it feel like a natural extension of the source material rather than a watered-down version of it. At the same time, it doesn't lose the identity of Mortal Kombat. The tone is serious, but it still embraces the over-the-top elements that define the franchise. The key difference is that those moments are presented with confidence instead of irony, so they feel intentional rather than played for laughs. That balance is what makes it work. It respects the darker edge of the series without stripping away what makes it unique, and that helps the movie feel more cohesive overall. There are a lot of small nods, references, and recognizable details throughout Mortal Kombat, and the key thing is that most of them feel naturally integrated instead of just thrown in for the sake of it. A lot of adaptations struggle with this. They'll pack in references purely as fan service, but those moments end up feeling forced or distracting because they don't actually fit what's happening in the scene. Here, the references are usually tied to character actions, dialogue, or specific situations, so they come across as part of the world rather than interruptions. For fans of the games, that makes a big difference. You recognize certain lines, visual cues, or signature elements, but they don't pull you out of the experience. Instead, they enhance it. They reward familiarity without relying on it. At the same time, the movie doesn't depend on those references to function. If you're not already familiar with the franchise, the story still makes sense on its own. The references are more like an added layer rather than the main focus. That balance is what makes them work. They're noticeable enough to be appreciated, but subtle enough that they don't take over the scene or feel like they're there just to check a box. It also does a good job of leaving the door open for future installments without making Mortal Kombat feel unfinished. You can tell it's building towards something bigger, especially with the idea of expanding the roster and fully diving into the actual tournament in later movies. But it doesn't come across like it's holding everything back just to tease sequels. Instead, it feels more like a foundation being set. The movie introduces enough characters, concepts, and conflicts to give you a solid sense of the world, while still making it clear there's more to explore. There are hints at other fighters, bigger threats, and larger-scale matchups that haven't happened yet, which creates anticipation without making the current story feel incomplete. That this is just the beginning feeling works because the movie still delivers its own contained experience. It doesn't rely entirely on future payoffs to justify itself. You get a sense of progression and resolution, even if it's only part of a larger arc. So instead of feeling like a setup that forgot to be a movie, it feels like a starting point that actually stands on its own while still giving you a reason to want more. A sequel, Mortal Kombat 2, is on the way, and there's already talk of a third film in development, which makes it pretty exciting to think about where the franchise could go next. The first movie mostly focused on setting the stage, introducing key characters, and hinting at the larger conflict. With that groundwork already in place, a sequel has a lot more room to expand. It can bring in more fighters from the games, explore deeper rivalries, and finally lean into the actual tournament structure that fans expect. There's also a lot of potential for bigger and more varied matchups. The roster in the games is huge, so future movies could introduce new fan-favorite characters, each with their own abilities, personalities, and storylines. That alone opens the door for more creative fights and interactions. On top of that, the world itself can grow. The first film only scratched the surface of different realms and factions. Sequels could explore those settings in more detail, showing how they connect and what's at stake on a larger scale. So yeah, with multiple movies planned, it really feels like this could turn into a full series rather than just a one-off adaptation. And if they build on what worked in the first film, there's a lot of room for it to get even better. If you're putting Mortal Kombat and Sword Art Online side by side, it's easy to see why someone might come away thinking Mortal Kombat feels like the stronger experience overall. It knows exactly what it wants to be and sticks to it. The pacing is tight, the focus is clear, and it doesn't waste time trying to juggle more than it can handle. Everything is built around delivering a consistent tone and straightforward entertainment, so it feels cohesive from start to finish. By comparison, Sword Art Online can feel a lot more uneven. The pacing jumps around, story arcs don't always get the development they need, and the rules of its world aren't always consistent. That can make parts of it come across as bland or frustrating, especially if you're paying attention to how everything is supposed to fit together. So while Mortal Kombat keeps things focused and delivers on its strengths, Sword Art Online sometimes struggles to maintain that same level of consistency. And if you value tight structure and clear direction, it's not surprising to come away feeling like one works better than the other. The writing in Sword Art Online can feel pretty sloppy at times, especially with how it handles setup and follow-through. A lot of ideas get introduced like they're going to matter, but then they either get dropped, rushed through, or quietly ignored later on. You'll see concepts, mechanics, or even character threads show up with some level of importance, only for the story to move on without really exploring them or resolving them properly. That creates this feeling of inconsistency. It's not just one isolated moment. It's a pattern where the story keeps bringing in new elements without fully committing to them. Instead of building on what's already there, it keeps shifting focus, which makes the overall narrative feel less cohesive. It also weakens the impact of future scenes. When you've seen ideas get introduced and then abandoned before, it becomes harder to stay invested. In new ones, you start to wonder if anything will actually pay off, or if it'll just be another concept that disappears once it's no longer convenient. So instead of feeling like a carefully structured story, it can come across more like a series of loosely connected moments. And that lack of follow-through is a big part of why the writing doesn't always land the way it's supposed to. The pacing is a huge problem as well. It rushes through important moments like they're just checkpoints instead of events that actually matter. In Sword Art Online, major developments don't get the time they need to breathe. Big character decisions, relationships, and conflicts often show up and get resolved almost immediately. Instead of building tension and letting things develop naturally, the story just moves on as fast as possible. That ends up hurting both the emotional impact and the overall narrative. When something important happens, you don't really get time to process it before the next thing starts. So even moments that are clearly meant to feel heavy or meaningful can come across as flat. It also creates a weird imbalance. Some parts feel dragged out, while others that should be central to the story are over in what feels like minutes. That inconsistency makes it harder to stay invested, because the story never really settles into a steady rhythm. So instead of feeling like a well-paced journey, it feels more like a highlight reel. You see all the big moments that are meant to matter, but you don't get the build-up that would actually make them hit the way they're supposed to. The game design side in Sword Art Online also feels pretty underdeveloped, and that adds to the frustration. The mechanics and rules don't always line up in a consistent way. Systems get introduced, but they don't behave like parts of a well-thought-out game. Instead, they often feel like they exist only when the story needs them, then fade into the background when they don't. That makes the world feel less like a functioning MMO and more like a loose framework for plot events. There's also a lack of clear structure. Real games rely on defined rules, balance, and predictable interactions between systems. Here, those boundaries aren't always clear. Abilities, items, and limitations can shift depending on the situation, which makes it hard to understand what's actually possible within the world. Because of that, the stakes don't always feel grounded. If the rules aren't consistent, it's harder to tell what's a real challenge and what can just be bypassed. That takes away some of the tension, since outcomes can feel more like plot decisions than the result of established mechanics. So instead of feeling like a believable game environment, it can come across as something that hasn't been fully thought through, where the rules are more flexible than they probably should be. Sword Art Online also tends to mishandle mythology in a way that feels pretty surface level. Instead of really engaging with the myths it borrows from, it often just takes names, imagery, or general ideas and drops them into the story without much depth behind them. On the surface, it might look like there's something meaningful there, but once you look closer, those references don't really connect to the original context or themes. That ends up making the mythology feel more like decoration than substance. It's there to sound cool or add flavor, not to actually shape the story or add layers of meaning. So instead of enriching the world, it just kind of sits on top of it. And when that keeps happening, it creates a pattern. Interesting ideas are introduced, but they're not explored in a meaningful way. They don't influence the story in a deeper sense, they just exist as background elements. So rather than feeling like a thoughtful use of mythology, it comes across as something that wasn't fully developed, which makes the world feel a lot less rich than it could have been. It makes you wonder why mythology was even included in Sword Art Online in the first place if it's not going to be used in a meaningful way. When a story pulls from mythology, there's usually an expectation that it's going to do something with it. Not just name drop or use it for aesthetics, but actually build on the themes, ideas, or symbolism behind it. That's where a lot of depth can come from. But here, it often feels like the references are just there to sound cool or add surface-level flavor. They don't really shape the story, influence character decisions, or tie into the larger narrative in a meaningful way. So instead of adding depth, they end up feeling kind of empty. And that's what makes it stand out. If you're going to bring in something as rich as mythology, it should serve a purpose. Otherwise, it just raises the question of why it's there at all. At that point, it doesn't feel like a deliberate storytelling choice. It feels more like missed potential. The Sword Art Online fanbase can be another sticking point, especially when it comes to how criticism is handled. From the outside, it often feels like there's a strong resistance to even basic critique. Bring up issues with pacing, writing, or consistency, and instead of a discussion, it can quickly turn into people shutting those points down or brushing them off entirely. that makes it harder to have any kind of balanced conversation about the series. Part of that comes from how polarizing the show is. Because it gets criticized so often, some fans end up going into defense mode right away. But the result is that even reasonable points can get dismissed without much thought, which just reinforces the divide between people who like the show and people who don't. It also creates this all-or-nothing atmosphere. Either you're fully on board with the series, or your criticism gets treated like you're attacking it unfairly. That kind of mindset doesn't leave much room for nuance, where you can both enjoy parts of the show and still acknowledge its flaws. So instead of encouraging discussion, it can sometimes shut it down, which only makes the overall conversation around the series more frustrating than it needs to be. Some fans of Sword Art Online do tend to defend the series very strongly, sometimes treating it as if it's beyond serious criticism. That can make discussions feel a bit one-sided, where flaws in writing, pacing, or consistency are quickly dismissed rather than actually addressed. Because the show is so polarizing, conversations often drift toward extremes. Either it's treated as something close to perfect, or as something completely without merit, and that leaves little room for more balanced takes where people can say, I enjoy this, but I can also see its problems. So from an outside perspective, it can seem like parts of the fanbase are more interested in defending the show than engaging with criticism, which makes discussion harder than it needs to be. The Mortal Kombat community does tend to come across as more relaxed in comparison, and a big part of that is the shared appreciation for the franchise itself. A lot of discussion around Mortal Kombat is built on mutual enthusiasm. People are there because they enjoy the characters, the lore, and the over-the-top style that defines the series. That common ground usually makes conversations feel more collaborative, with fans focusing on what they like, what they want to see next, and how different versions of the characters are handled. There's still debate, of course, especially around adaptations, story choices, or character portrayals, but it often stays centered on the content itself rather than turning into long, defensive arguments. People might disagree, but they're usually starting from the same place of appreciation for the franchise. That shared baseline helps keep things from becoming overly hostile. Instead of trying to win arguments, a lot of interactions are just fans comparing interpretations, talking about favorite moments, or speculating about future entries. So overall, it tends to feel more like a community built around enjoyment and discussion of the same material, rather than constant back and forth over whether the series is good or bad. It makes sense to prefer one community over another based on the kind of conversations you enjoy. The Mortal Kombat community tends to feel more straightforward and relaxed, mostly centered around shared excitement for the franchise, character matchups, and speculation about future entries. Discussions usually stay focused on the material itself, which can make it feel more casual and easy to engage with. By contrast, the Sword Art Online fandom is more polarizing, partly because the series itself is heavily debated. Conversations often shift between strong praise and strong criticism, which can make discussions feel more tense or repetitive, depending on where you're reading. If you prefer a community that stays focused on shared enjoyment and less on constant debate over flaws, the Mortal Kombat space is more comfortable. As you can see, the overall takeaway of the comparison is a clear preference for Mortal Kombat over Sword Art Online. One is built around tight, focused entertainment with a strong sense of direction, while the other is more uneven and sloppy in execution, which makes the difference in experience pretty noticeable depending on what you value in a story. As a bonus for sticking around until now, let's take a look at how the heroes could realistically stand a chance against the villains in Mortal Kombat. One of the biggest advantages the villains have is raw power and experience, especially fighters like Sub-Zero, who can control ice in extremely lethal and versatile ways. So the key to beating opponents like him isn't just strength, but strategy. Staying mobile, avoiding predictable movement, and forcing close-range encounters where his abilities are slightly less dominant would be crucial. Another important factor is coordination. A lot of the characters in the movie are strongest when they work individually, but they become much more effective when they actually combine their abilities and fight as a team. Coordinated attacks, distractions, and support roles could help balance the fight against more powerful opponents. Understanding each opponent's weaknesses also matters. Many of the villains rely heavily on specific abilities or fighting styles, which means adapting mid-fight is essential. Characters who can read patterns, react quickly, and change tactics on the fly would have a much better chance of turning the tide. And finally, preparation plays a huge role. In a world like Mortal Kombat, raw talent isn't always enough. Knowing what you're up against, training specifically for those threats, and entering fights with a plan instead of improvising everything on the spot would make a major difference. So while the villains are clearly powerful, they're not unbeatable. The outcome often comes down to strategy, teamwork, and how well the heroes can adapt under pressure. Afterwards, we can also take a look at some of the movie's best Easter eggs and references, as well as what we already know about the sequel. The Mortal Kombat is packed with small details that reward fans who are familiar with the games. A lot of these moments aren't essential to understanding the plot, but they add extra depth if you recognize the characters, abilities, or callbacks being referenced. Things like visual nods to classic fighters, familiar catchphrases, and subtle design choices all help connect the movie to the wider franchise without slowing the story down. Looking through those details can actually make a rewatch more interesting, because you start noticing things you might have missed the first time. Some references are very direct, while others are more hidden in background elements or brief moments of dialogue. After that, it also makes sense to talk about what's coming next. With Mortal Kombat 2 already in development, there's a lot of speculation about how the story will expand, which new characters might be introduced, and how the tournament itself will be handled going forward. The first movie sets up a lot of possibilities, so the sequel has plenty of room to build on that foundation. So overall, there's a lot to unpack beyond just the main story, both in terms of hidden details in the current film and where the franchise could be heading next. We can also talk about the animated Mortal Kombat Legends films too, since they add another layer to the franchise beyond live action. The Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's revenge movie especially, is worth looking at because it focuses heavily on Scorpion's backstory and his personal conflict with Sub-Zero, giving that rivalry a lot more time and emotional weight than most adaptations do. The animation style also allows for more exaggerated, game-accurate action that would be harder to pull off in live action. Overall, the animated films give the franchise more room to explore storylines, characters, and relationships that don't always fit into a single live-action movie.
Outworld has already won 9 Mortal Kombat tournaments, and they only need to win 1 more to conquer Earthrealm forever. However, Sub-Zero and the other Outworlders are hunting and killing Earthrealm's champions before the next tournament even begins, so they'll be victorious by default. If you are one of the Earthrealm champions being hunted, what should you do? How can you defeat Sub-Zero and the other Outworlders? In this video, I'll break down the Mortal Kombat movie, explain all the mistakes made, see if I can make better decisions than the characters, and ultimately try to beat Sub-Zero and the Outworlders. Let's get started. The movie begins in the year 1617 at Hanzo Hasashi's compound in Japan. Bi-Han and several other Lin Kuei assassins attack Hanzo and his family. Bi-Han kills Hanzo's wife and son. Hanzo manages to kill all of the Lin Kuei attackers except for Bi-Han. Hanzo and Bi-Han fight, but Bi-Han eventually wins and kills Hanzo. However, I see a few ways that Hanzo probably could have won this fight. First of all, Hanzo could have tried using water. In the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie, Liu Kang threw water at Sub-Zero, which caused an icicle to form and impale him. Hanzo could have tried doing the same here. He had 2 buckets of water, so it's not like Hanzo didn't have immediate access to any water. Of course, this would only work if Bi-Han was using his ice powers, so Hanzo would need to somehow trick Bi-Han into doing that. Second, Hanzo should be using more weapons. He could have taken the swords of the dead Lin Kuei assassins he killed. Bi-Han was unarmed, so if Hanzo was dual-wielding swords for example, then he would have a much better chance of winning the fight. Furthermore, Bi-Han was sitting there out in the open, instead of yelling and announcing his presence. Hanzo could have used the element of surprise and snuck up on Bi-Han. If Hanzo attacked Bi-Han when he wasn't ready, he would have the upper hand. Remember, Bi-Han killed Hanzo's wife and son, so if I was him, then I wouldn't be showing any mercy or fighting fair and square. This is Hanzo's home turf, so he should know the layout of the land better than Bi-Han. After Hanzo dies, Lord Raiden appears to take his infant daughter away to safety. Why didn't Raiden show up a few minutes earlier? He could have also teleported Hanzo and his family away to safety. I know that Raiden isn't allowed to directly interfere, but he can teleport the Earthrealm fighters to a safe place, like what happens later in the movie, so Raiden could have totally saved Hanzo and his family. We move to the present day and meet the movie's protagonist, MMA fighter Cole Young. He regularly experiences visions of Hanzo. Bi-Han, now known as Sub-Zero, attacks Cole and his family while they're out at dinner. We know that the Outworlders are only attacking people with a dragon marking, so one way to avoid this is to never tell anyone about your dragon marking. It would be hard to track you down if nobody else knows you have a dragon marking. Although most people with a dragon marking marking don't actually know what it signifies, so they wouldn't know to keep it a secret. Luckily, Cole and his family are rescued by Special Forces Major Jax Briggs, and they escape. This is definitely the best option. Sub-Zero is a lot more powerful than Cole, so instead of directly confronting him, running away would be better. Jax explains what Cole's dragon marking really means. He also stays behind to fight Sub-Zero, and lets Cole drive away with his family. Jax tells Cole to find his partner Sonya Blade. Sub-Zero fights Jax, and easily beats him after destroying both of his arms. Jax shouldn't have fought Sub-Zero on his own. As stated earlier, instead of directly confronting Sub-Zero, running away would be better. Sub-Zero is on foot, so it's not like he can catch up to the characters, since they're in a truck. If Jax was really going to fight Sub-Zero on his own, then using a flamethrower would be a better choice. Cole goes to Sonya's hideout and finds her. Sonya explains that she and Jax have been investigating the existence of Mortal Kombat after encountering a target with superhuman abilities in Brazil 7 years ago. The target also had a dragon marking, and it transferred onto Jax's skin after he killed him. The dragon marking means that you've been chosen to fight for Earth. Sonya has Kano imprisoned in her hideout, and he has a dragon marking as well. Shang Tsung sends Reptile to attack the hideout. Reptile's abilities include invisibility and acid saliva. One way to beat Reptile is to cover him in paint. That way you know where Reptile is, so it should be pretty easy to avoid his saliva, and then kill him. I'm sure Sonya has some paint in her hideout, or they could use that fire extinguisher and do the same thing. Cole, Sonya, and Kano work together to fight Reptile, and Kano kills him by ripping out his heart. Sticking your hand into Reptile's body isn't a smart decision. You already saw that Reptile's saliva was acidic, so his blood could be acidic as well, like the xenomorphs in Alien. Sonya could just use one of her many knives to slit Reptile's throat. Cole, Sonya, and Kano travel to Raiden's temple via plane. They parachute off the plane, but they could have waited until they were closer to the temple. That way they won't need to waste so much time walking there. Kano has been to the temple before, so he should know the location. Liu Kang finds the characters and leads them to the temple. Jax is at the temple as well. He's alive and was brought here by Liu Kang. The temple monks build mechanical arms for Jax. We also meet Liu Kang's cousin Kung Lao. Shang Tsung, Sub-Zero, and Mileena suddenly attack the temple. I feel like Liu Kang should easily be able to beat Sub-Zero, since he has pyrokinetic powers, and Sub-Zero has ice powers. Ice is weak to fire. Liu Kang throws a fireball at Sub-Zero, but he dodges it. However, if Liu Kang continued to attack Sub-Zero with more fireballs, then there's not much he would be able to do about that. I highly doubt Sub-Zero will be able to dodge 10 fireballs at once. Raiden creates a shield of lightning to hold the Outworlders off and give the Earthrealm champions more time to train. Cole and Kano train with Liu Kang and Kung Lao to unlock their Arcana, which are special abilities granted to anyone with the dragon marking. During a heated argument at dinner, Kano's power awakens. He's able to shoot laser beams from his right eye. Cole is still not able to awaken his power. Maybe Cole just needs to get very angry as well, like what happened to Kano earlier. Raiden tells Cole that he's actually a descendant of Hanzo through his daughter. For centuries, the dragon marking has been passed down through Cole's ancestors, so that's why he was born with it. Raiden tells Cole to leave so he can go back home to his family. Cole shouldn't have given up so easily. It's not that hard to unlock your Arcana. Later in the movie, we see Jax and Sonya both unlock their Arcana pretty quickly without even training. In the meantime, Shang Tsung plans to attack Raiden's temple again. This time he recruits Natara, Cabal, Reiko, and Goro. Cabal goes to the temple and convinces Kano to switch sides. Kano destroys Raiden's staff and brings down the shield. Raiden should have also created a shield around the staff, so nobody could destroy it. Where is Raiden right now? I'm sure he could just create another lightning shield. The Outworlders attack the temple, while Goro goes to attack Cole and his family. Liu Kang fights Cabal, who has the power of super speed. One way to beat Cabal would be to temporarily blind him. Liu Kang can use his fire abilities to create a very bright light. Then Cabal would be stunned and wouldn't know where to go, thus rendering his super speed ineffective. Liu Kang could finish Cabal off with his dragon fatality. Moreover, Cabal is wearing a mask, so his field of view is limited, and his peripheral vision is obscured. In other words, it would be difficult for Cabal to see Liu Kang attacking him from the side, so Liu Kang should use that to his advantage. Jax fights Reiko, but is unable to defeat him. I honestly don't see a viable way for Jax to win. There's not much he can do, because he's at such a huge disadvantage with those tiny metal arms, and he doesn't even have a weapon. Sonya fights Mileena, and is also unable to defeat her. There also wasn't much Sonya could have done to win. Mileena was simply a lot more skilled than her. Maybe if Sonya was using a gun, she might have a slight edge over Mileena, but then again Mileena can teleport, so probably not. Kung Lao kills Natara with his buzzsaw hat. Cole fights Goro but is outmatched. Cole could try punching Goro in the crotch, like what Johnny Cage did to Goro in the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. Cole's wife takes an axe and slashes Goro's stomach, but she should have gone for the head. Cole finally awakens his Arcana. When he sees his family is in danger, he can create armor around his body and a set of Tonfas. The armor can also absorb damage and redirect attacks. so Cole's arcana is literally plot armor. Using his newfound abilities, Cole easily kills Goro. Jax's power also awakens when he's helping Sonya. His mechanical arms are turned into powerful weapons. Cole returns to Raiden's temple to help the other champions. Raiden explains to Shang Tsung and Sub-Zero who Cole really is. It would have been smarter to keep this a secret. Now Shang Tsung and Sub-Zero are going to try extra hard to kill Cole, so they can end Hanzo's bloodline once and for all. Sub-Zero might not have gone after Cole's family later in the film if he didn't know that Cole was a descendant of Hanzo. Shang Tsung then kills Kung Lao by sucking his soul out of his body. Cole and Liu Kang could have probably done something. They were just standing there and watching. Maybe if you could interrupt Shang Tsung before he's done sucking out a soul, then the victim won't be completely dead. Just like how Sub-Zero was able to interrupt Raiden's teleport by knocking Cole out of it. And why didn't Kung Lao summon his hat back to attack Shang Tsung? He should have used his buzzsaw hat again, like what he did to Nitara earlier. Shang Tsung didn't immediately start sucking out Kung Lao's soul, so he should have had time to quickly react and counterattack. Raiden teleports the Earthrealm champions into the Void, a safe realm where Shang Tsung can't follow. Cole comes up with a plan to split the Outworlders up, so they have to fight one-on-one against Earthrealm's champions. Nobody can take on Sub-Zero alone, so they'll save him for last and fight him together. Raiden agrees with the plan and gives Hanzo's bloodstained kunai to Cole, but wouldn't it be better if Raiden just teleported the Outworlders to Earthrealm's champions one at a time? That way it would be 4 against 1 instead of 1 versus 1, and the Earthrealm champions could work together and easily beat all the Outworlders. We know that Shang Tsung can also teleport the Outworlders anywhere, but since the characters are inside the Void right now, Shang Tsung can't follow them there, so Raiden could just teleport the other Outworlders into the Void one by one, so the Earthrealm champions can kill them. And if Raiden can send anyone anywhere, then why not teleport the Outworlders into space? Or into the Mariana Trench or something like that. They would die without the Earthrealm champions even needing to fight them. Raiden teleports everyone to their targets. Jax fights Reiko, and kills him with his new powerful mechanical arms. Jax and Reiko are fighting on the pit stage though, so pushing Reiko over the edge would also work. Sonya fights Kano, and kills him by stabbing him in the eye with a garden gnome. Sonya could have also tried using a mirror to redirect Kano's laser beams right back at him. Afterwards, Kano's dragon marking transfers to Sonya. Liu Kang fights Cabal again, while Cole fights Melina. Why doesn't Cole's armor absorb the damage during this fight? Liu Kang kicks Cabal into a tar pit so he can't move, and kills him by using a Dragonfire Fatality. Cole can't kill Melina, but Sonya comes to help him. So Cole killed Goro on his own, but can't handle Melina? Sonya also gets her own arcana, and she can fire energy blasts from bracelets that appear on her forearms. Sonya kills Melina. Meanwhile, Sub-Zero captures and freezes Cole's family. He then goes to Cole, and lures him to a gym covered in ice. Cole shouldn't have ran through the portal so quickly. I'm sure Liu Kang and Sonya could have followed him. Cole fights Sub-Zero, but he's too strong. Again, why doesn't Cole's armor absorb the damage here? If Cole's armor was absorbing the damage, then he could redirect the attacks back at Sub-Zero. It would be a lot easier to kill him. Sub-Zero is about to kill Cole, but he uses the kunai and releases Hanzo from the Netherrealm. Hanzo, now known as Scorpion, fights Sub-Zero. Scorpion eventually kills Sub-Zero by burning him to death, since he learned how to control fire. But why didn't Scorpion just do this at the start of the fight? I know we wouldn't have gotten this awesome fight scene, but Scorpion would have been able to kill Sub-Zero much quicker, and not risk getting himself killed again. Scorpion thanks Cole for freeing him, and departs after telling Cole to take care of his bloodline. I sure hope Cole is able to understand Japanese. Raiden and the other Earthrealm champions arrive. Why couldn't they come sooner? Raiden is always a few minutes late to the party. If Raiden did teleport the other Earthrealm champions to the gym a bit earlier, then they could have easily beaten Sub-Zero together. Cole could tank the hits with his armor, while Jax holds Sub-Zero in place with his mechanical arms. Then Liu Kang and Sonya could shoot some fireballs and energy blasts at Sub-Zero to kill him. Sonya killed Melina in one shot, so it shouldn't be too hard to kill Sub-Zero. Shang Tsung also comes, and he vows to return with armies instead of fighters. He teleports Goro and Sub-Zero's dead bodies away, which means that they'll 100% get resurrected in the future. Get ready for Noob Saibot in the sequel. Raiden banishes Shang Tsung to Outworld and tells the Earthrealm champions that they need to prepare for the next tournament. Finally, the movie ends with Cole going to Hollywood to look for actor Johnny Cage. And that's how to beat Sub-Zero and the other Outworlders in Mortal Kombat. Do you have any better strategies or methods? If so, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of the Mortal Kombat movie? I personally thought it was pretty decent. The actors were great and the fight scenes were awesome. I definitely watch a sequel. Which movie should I do next? Leave a suggestion. Be sure to also check out some of the other how to beat videos on this channel. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.
Mortal Kombat is a 2021 martial arts fantasy movie. It's based on the video game franchise of the same name. In this video, I'll break down the Mortal Kombat movie, explain the ending, as well as what's next. Let's get started. The movie begins in 17th century Japan. Lin Kuei assassins, led by Bi-Han, attack Hanzo Hasashi's village. Hanzo's wife and son are killed. Hanzo fights the attackers, but Bi-Han kills him. As Hanzo dies, Lord Raiden appears to take his infant daughter away to safety. We move to the present day, where Outworld is on the brink of victory against Earthrealm. They've already won 9 Mortal Kombat tournaments and need to win 1 more to invade and conquer Earthrealm. Shang Tsung employs warriors to kill Earthrealm's champions, who are identified by a distinctive dragon mark. We meet MMA fighter Cole Young. He regularly experiences visions of Hanzo. Bi-Han, now known as Sub-Zero, attacks Cole and his family. Luckily, they're rescued by Special Forces Major Jax Briggs. Jax explains what Cole's dragon mark really means. Jax allows Cole and his family to escape and tells them to find Sonya Blade. Jax stays behind to find Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero easily defeats Jax and destroys both his arms. Cole finds Sonya at her hideout. Sonya explains that she and Jax have been investigating Mortal Kombat after encountering a target in Brazil 7 years ago. The target had the same dragon marking. When Jax took him down, the dragon marking transferred onto his skin. The dragon marking signifies that you've been chosen to fight for Earth. Sonya has Kano imprisoned in her hideout, and he also has a dragon marking. Reptile suddenly attacks the hideout. Cole, Sonya, and Kano work together to fight Reptile, and Kano kills him. Cole, Sonya, and Kano then travel to Raiden's temple. They meet Liu Kang and Kung Lao, 2 more Earthrealm champions. Jax is also there, and he has mechanical arms. Shang Tsung, Sub-Zero, and Mileena attack the temple, but Raiden creates a shield to hold them off. Cole and Kano train with Liu Kang and Kung Lao to unlock their special powers. Meanwhile, Sonya encourages Jax to continue fighting. Kano's power is the ability to fire laser beams from his right eye. Cole is unable to awaken his power. Raiden tells Cole that he's a descendant of Hanzo through his daughter. The dragon marking has been passed down through the family, so that's why Cole was born with it. Raiden allows Cole to leave and go back to his family. Shang Tsung plans to attack the temple again. He recruits Natara, Kabal, Reiko, and Goro. Kabal convinces Kano to switch sides and bring down Raiden's shield so the Outworlders can attack. Goro also goes to attack Cole and his family. Liu Kang is barely able to defeat Kabal. Kung Lao kills Natara. However, Jax and Sonya are outmatched by Reiko, Kano, and Mileena. Cole finally awakens his power. He can create a suit of armor around his body and a set of tonfas. Cole kills Goro and returns to the temple to help the others. Jax's power also awakens. His mechanical arms are turned into powerful weapons. Raiden tells Shang Tsung and Sub-Zero the truth about Cole. Kung Lao dies after his soul is sucked out of his body by Shang Tsung. Raiden teleports the Earthrealm champions into the Void, a safe space between realms. Cole comes up with a plan to split Outworld's champions up so they have to fight one-on-one against Earthrealm's champions. Raiden agrees and gives Hanzo's bloodstained kunai to Cole. Raiden then teleports Cole and the others to their targets. Jax kills Reiko, Sonya kills Kano, and acquires the dragon mark. Liu Kang kills Kabal. Sonya also gets her own power, and she can fire energy blasts from her hands. Sonya and Cole kill Mileena. Sub-Zero appears to lure Cole to the gym. They fight, but Sub-Zero is too powerful. Cole is about to get killed, but he uses the kunai and releases Hanzo from the Netherrealm as Scorpion. Cole and Scorpion fight Sub-Zero together, and Scorpion burns Sub-Zero to death. Scorpion thanks Cole for freeing him and departs. Raiden and the other Earthrealm champions arrive. Shang Tsung comes and vows to return with armies instead of fighters, but Raiden banishes him to the Outworld. Raiden tells the champions that they need to prepare for the next tournament. Finally, the movie ends with Cole going to Hollywood to look for actor Johnny Cage. So why wasn't Johnny Cage in the actual movie? Producer Todd Garner explained this in an interview with Screen Rant. Johnny Cage is obviously the elephant in the room, and there's a number of reasons why Johnny Cage was problematic in this particular movie out of the gate. One, he's a very big personality, right? He needs his own space. It's very hard to just throw him in a movie, like I said with Kano. So taking him out was very easy, not only for the movie, but for the sequel. I want to make a sequel, and I've now got Johnny Cage, which hasn't been used in the first one. So I've got a big stick and a carrot, and maybe they'll let me have a Johnny Cage presence in the second one. Secondarily, when you think about Mortal Kombat, and if you just think about the patina of the movie, it has a very Asian feel to it. And early on, I felt uncomfortable having a white male kind of lead the charge in the first movie. It just felt really Hollywoodish to me, which is weird because he's an actor, which is also weird. And then it's probably my bias of how it just feels weird if I'm trying to do something different, diverse, and true. Is it a cop-out to all of a sudden have Ryan Reynolds, not him, but you know, as the lead? It felt a little disingenuous to me. It's super easy to bring him in a big, bombastic, fun way in the second, and he deserves that as a character. I love these characters, so we thought hard about it. Todd Gardner also talked about about his plans for an extended cinematic universe for Mortal Kombat in an interview with Collider. There are people we can see later. There's also characters that have such complicated backstories with other characters. You want to give them more service. I keep saying I want to do 9 hours of WandaVision in this thing. Whether it's our vision of that, maybe it's just the monks, just Liu Kang and Kung Lao, 9 hours of them. I'm in. There's so much to draw from. So we were trying to be as intelligent as we could to tell a story that you could just come in and sit down and not know what Mortal Kombat is and enjoy it. And by the end, be as big of a fan as the guy who played the game for 30 years and knows everything about everything. There's certain things I would have loved to have had in the movie, and I just couldn't. Cost and practicality and things like that, just going off on a weird tangent for 20 minutes for something that's not to the core of the story. So our goal and our prayer is that this movie does well enough, and we've set it up enough and is satisfying enough for both fans and people who don't know anything about Mortal Kombat, that they're just going to allow us at some point to sit with creators Ed Boon and John Tobias and all the Warner Brother execs and put up a big whiteboard like Kevin Feige did and map out the universe and map out years and years of this. That's my prayer. In an interview with Epic Stream, director Simon McQuoid talked about if there were going to be a sequel. It's hard to answer that question because throughout the whole process, none of us ever talked about a sequel. It's not something we talked about. If people start talking about it, I would tell them to stop talking about it because it's not really for us to decide whether we're going to get a sequel or not. It's really for the audience to tell us. If people like the film, then great. We'll start working on that. Obviously, there's a lot of source material to work with and there's a lot of characters. I can't give you a specific answer to that because it's not something we spent a lot of time thinking about. We said, let's do our best to get this as good as we can, knowing there's places we can go. Writer Greg Russo mentioned in an interview with CBR that he wrote Mortal Kombat as a trilogy. When I wrote it, I conceived it as a trilogy. I didn't even tell the people I was working with that I was doing it as a trilogy. Just as a writer, you never want to paint yourself into a corner or shut down where your storyline could go. When I was writing the first film, I was always in the back of my mind outlining 2 more, so I always knew where things would go. I would love to come back and explore. There's just so much of the mythology that we didn't have time to get into, but 2 hours is the right length for a first film. But there's also more. There's the Shaolin monks, there's the special forces, there's all these spin-offs that you could see. But in terms of the films, I wanted to make sure there were places we could go and certain realms we barely touched them. For example, Edenia is a realm that I love, and I love all the characters there. Kitana, Sindel, all these great characters. And as much as I wanted to put them in the movie, the story said to wait a minute because that deserves its own time to shine. So don't just jam all these characters in there when it's not done right. And when it came to a character selection, it's all about doing the characters a service. But I would love to write more, and I love to explore more. Other than Johnny Cage, which characters could appear in a Mortal Kombat sequel? Well, there's tons of characters who aren't part of the first movie, so any of them could make an appearance in the sequel. For example, Kitana, Shinnok, Cyrax, Shao Kahn, Baraka, Ermac, Quan Chi, Smoke, Jade, Sindel, Frost, Shiva, Nightwolf, and Rain. Furthermore, Sub-Zero will most likely get resurrected as Noob Saibot. The actor who played Sub-Zero, Joe Taslim, has stated in an interview with Screen Rant that he hopes there will be a Sub-Zero spin-off movie. My hope is that I can give justice to Sub-Zero, and I hope people want to see his transformation to become Noob Saibot. I want people to go, oh, that's why. Now I understand why he's Noob Saibot, because I want to have this journey of him that people follow. And I want people, when they watch the movie, to think and say, I want to see what happened. I want to see the prequel. I want to see what happened to Sub-Zero. I want to see when he got abducted by the Lin Kuei. I want to see his training in the Lin Kuei. This is in the middle of the journey of Sub-Zero, with my expectation to the fans to give them motivation so they want to see more, like a sequel or a prequel, so we can have a full journey of Sub-Zero. That's possibly the goal. That's probably my wish. Moreover, Rain was originally going to be in the movie, but he was ultimately cut. Simon explained why that happened in an interview with Screen Rant. There's only one character that was early on who went by the wayside, just simply because they weren't moving the story forward. The scene that they were in was really expensive and not really helping in any way, and that was Rain. Just by judging, you have to balance the pros and cons. It wasn't that anyone didn't like him, it was just that how he was being brought about in that particular moment was just not buying enough bang for the buck. The character Cole Young actually isn't a character from the Mortal Kombat video games. He's a completely new character that was created for the movie. Simon talked about why they decided to introduce him. That's part of it. The new audience's eyes. It was a very important part of it. We knew we needed advice and an idea to bring audiences through this very rich, layered, detailed canon that is Mortal Kombat. But we didn't want him to just be completely new. We wanted him to have a connection and really be built out of what the key ingredients are within Mortal Kombat. It's fighting, so he's an MMA fighter. And then his connection through the film is built, and his arcana and everything is built out of pieces and elements and ingredients from his lineage and so forth. It's really about creating someone who felt new but somehow belonged. That was sort of attempted alchemy at what we were creating here. Lewis did a fantastic job. He did a great job. Greg Russo also talked about Cole in an interview with CBR. The idea of a new protagonist was something that predated predated my involvement. When I came in, they wanted a way into the movie for a new audience, and I understand that and get that 100%. When we're bringing in a new protagonist, there's a couple of great benefits to it. One, it allows us to funnel a lot of that mythology through the character. It's a natural part of the storytelling process because we have to get that information out. It was tricky to get the information out through the established Mortal Kombat characters because they have their preset dispositions and beliefs and backstories. We felt that a new character was a great engine to deliver that information, but also for creative purposes. We wanted to be able to bring in a new point of view, brand new character, and new side of the story. We didn't just want to retell the same story that people have seen 100 times about two characters getting on a boat and going to an island. As writer, my job is to make sure that the new character fits organically into the mythology. He's not just tossed in there to be that fish out of water guy. He plays an important part in the story, and that was part of the process. After the critical and commercial failure of 1997's Mortal Kombat Annihilation, a third Mortal Kombat movie was in development for over 2 decades. If you're wondering why it took so long for a reboot to happen, it's because Todd Gardner had a lot of demands before making the movie. 1 was that it had to be R-rated. 2, has to be diverse. 3, had to be faithful. 4, they've got to be martial artists. 5, it would be really good if they were the best martial artists. Not surprisingly, that took me 7 years to get this movie made. There are tons of Mortal Kombat games, and there are multiple timelines, so fans were unsure about what timeline the Mortal Kombat movie is set in. Luckily, Simon has clarified this. There's a lot of different timelines and different iterations of characters and all sorts of stuff that comes out of the source material. So we were conscious of that in the same way we were respectful of everything that comes out of the source material. We don't really mess with time per se. Aside from that opening, which is set in ancient Japan, it's present day. So we don't mess with time at all. And we tried to keep that aspect of it reasonably simple because there was enough going on as it was. A lot of plate spinning going on with this movie. So just try and keep that aspect pretty simple. Simon also gave an explanation on why they decided to go with a more grounded approach for this movie. I felt that in a video game, and the guys at Netherrealm have done an amazing job at evolving and always building upon it, where they've got the game to now is incredible. But when you're inside a video game, there's a lot of stuff you can get away with because it's not real. Not only the level of art, but also just the way someone's costume might be, or the way someone jumps, or the superpowers. But when you bring that into reality, you can get into a bad Halloween party real quick. So I wanted to make sure it felt incredibly deep and rich and layered and textured and weighty to counterbalance the potential to tip into that sort of land. Also, my belief is that if you make something that an audience believes, then they will go on the ride with you. Tonally, I was looking to build something that is totally unreal, but make it feel real so that you as an audience member really like the ride. I've always loved the films, whatever genre they might be, that take me into a world that I really believe that it pulses out of the experience for me as an audience member. So that is really what I'm searching for, and that's why there are so many layers and details. I was just pushing the costume designer every day that we need more layers, we need more texture. It became a running gag with Cappy. I suppose you want more detail, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of be nice. Because once you get those lenses in and you've put the characters in that detail in front of the lenses, it all starts to cohesively join together. Really, it was all about elevating the characters and the feel of it. What did you think of Mortal Kombat? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. I personally thought it was pretty decent. It's not the best video game movie or anything, but the fight scenes were great, and it was very fun to watch. I'd definitely watch the sequel if they made one. Be sure to check out some of the other ending explained videos on this channel. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
There are tons of Easter eggs, references, and hidden details in the new Mortal Kombat movie. I'll explain some of them in this video. Let's get started. Buckets of water. You can see Hanzo dropping 2 buckets of water here. In the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie, there were 2 buckets of water when Liu Kang was fighting Sub-Zero. Liu Kang defeated Sub-Zero by using the water from one of the buckets. Scorpion's colors. Cole is wearing black and yellow, which are Scorpion's colors. This is a subtle hint at how Cole is a descendant of Scorpion. Cole's daughter, Emily, is also making a black and yellow colored bracelet for him. Additionally, Cole's backpack strap is black and yellow. Eddie Tobias. Jack says Cole is the man that took the belt from Eddie Tobias. This is a reference to the creators of Mortal Kombat, Ed Boon and John Tobias. Noob Saibot. Sub-Zero's costume in this movie is a very dark shade of blue, which is different from the Mortal Kombat video games. This was intentional. It was done to show how darkness is eating at Sub-Zero, and how he'll become Noob Saibot in the future, if they continue the story. Graffiti. On the wall you can see graffiti of a down arrow, right arrow plus the letters LP. These are the controller moves for Sub-Zero's Ice Freeze attack from the original Mortal Kombat video game, Syzoth. Shang Tsung refers to Reptile by the name Syzoth. This is a reference to Mortal Kombat 10. Reptile is now capable of speech, and is identified by the name Syzoth. Nightwolf. Sonya Blade has an image of Nightwolf on her bulletin board. Later in the movie you can also see a Nightwolf statue in Raiden's temple. Nightwolf is a powerful and respectful warrior of the Matoka tribe. He's been a supporting character to the series, as well as becoming one of the most prolific Native American characters in video games. Nightwolf made his playable debut in Mortal Kombat 3, and has been a recurring character since. Nightwolf returned in Mortal Kombat 2011 again as a playable character, while having a supporting role in the game story mode, Motaro. There's also an image of a vase with a centaur on it. This is a reference to Motaro, who made his first appearance in Mortal Kombat 3. He's a centaurian, meaning that he has the body of a stallion and the torso of a man. Motaro also has a pair of Capricorn-like horns and a long metallic rat-like tail. He is nearly 9 feet tall. Kotal Khan. Furthermore, there's an image of Kotal Khan. Kotal Khan is a powerful, high-ranking Aztec. He's the former Emperor of Outworld, serving as the realm's emperor after the death of Shao Kahn. Kotal Khan made his playable debut in Mortal Kombat 10, serving as a tertiary antagonist in the game story mode, opposite to Shinnok and Quan Chi. Kotal Khan returned in Mortal Kombat 11 as a playable character, while also serving as a supporting character in the game story mode. Name misspelling. Cole says that Mortal Kombat is spelled wrong. This is a nod to how the developers actually came up with the name Mortal Kombat. The team had difficulty settling on a name for the game. Ed Boon has stated that for 6 months during development, nobody could come up with a name nobody didn't hate. Some of the names suggested were Kumite, Dragon Attack, Deathblow, and Fatality. One day, someone had written down Combat on the drawing board for names in Boon's office, and someone wrote a K over the C, according to Boon, just to be kinda weird. Pinball designer Steve Ritchie was sitting in Boon's office, saw the word combat and said to him, "Why don't you name it Mortal Kombat?" A name that Boon stated just stuck. John Tobias recalled this a bit differently, saying it came about during the trademark process in naming the game. "We really liked Mortal Kombat as a name, but it couldn't get past legal." Black Dragon Clan. Sonya mentions that Kano is a mercenary with the Black Dragon Clan. The Black Dragon Clan is an international gang of criminals, and an antagonistic faction in the Mortal Kombat universe. They serve as one of the most dangerous factions, since they reside in Earthrealm. According to legend, the Black Dragon Clan split from its parent group, the Red Dragon Clan. The reason the Black Dragon was founded was a deep-rooted discontent with the strict codes of honor and stealth that pervaded the Red Dragon. Thus, they turned on them, so they can commit even more heinous crimes. Reptile. Reptile's design is based on Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. In that game, Reptile had similar abilities, like invisibility and acid saliva. Fatalities. A lot of the fatalities from the Mortal Kombat video games also appear in the movie. For example, there's Kano's Heart Rip, Kung Lao's Hat Splitter, Shang Tsung's Soul Steal, Jax's Head Clap, Liu Kang's Dragon, and last but not least, Scorpion's Toasty. Kano wins. After killing Reptile, Kano says that he wins. This is a reference to our ring announcer voice lets players know who's won a match in the Mortal Kombat video games. Graphic novel. Kano says that he's working on his own graphic novel. This could be a nod to the Mortal Kombat Raiden and Kano comics. Movesets. A lot of the movesets from the Mortal Kombat video games also appear in the movie. For example, there's Liu Kang's Bicycle Kick and Dragonfire, Sub-Zero's Ice Sword and Ice Wall, Kung Lao's Hat Throw, Scorpion's Spear, Kano's Eye Laser. Pop culture references. Kano makes a lot of pop culture references in the movie. For example, there's MC Hammer, David Copperfield, Gandalf, Box of Chocolates from Forrest Gump, Harry Potter and Magic Mike. Order of Light. When Liu Kang introduces himself, he says he's from the Shaolin Order of Light. The Order of Light is an order of monks in Earthrealm. They reside in the Shaolin temples of the Henan province in China. The Order of Light is featured in the opening segment of the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. Liu Kang visits his former masters at the temple, Delia and Argus. The characters Delia and Argus appear on a mural in Raiden's temple. Delia is the wife of Argus, and the mother of Taven and Dagon in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Argus is one of the gods of the realm of Edenia, as well as its great divine protector, assigned to defend it from threats of outside forces. Shao Kahn. The character Shao Kahn also appears on a mural in Raiden's temple. Later in the movie, you can see a Shao Kahn statue. Shao Kahn is a powerful tyrant of the Outworld throne. He is one of the most celebrated villains in not only the fighting genre, but the video game genre as a whole. He serves as a primary antagonist of the franchise in many instances. Shao Kahn made his debut in Mortal Kombat 2 as the final boss, a role he also served in Mortal Kombat 3 and in later games. He later returned as the non-playable final boss in Mortal Kombat 2011, serving as the main antagonist of the game's story mode. The Amulet of Shinnok. Kano attempts to steal a necklace in Raiden's temple. This is actually the Amulet of Shinnok, one of the most powerful weapons in the Mortal Kombat universe. It symbolizes greatness in the magical arts. Anyone who wields the accursed Amulet of Shinnok will increase their powers drastically. Cousins. In the movie, Kung Lao and Liu Kang are portrayed as cousins. The actors who play them, Max Huang and Ludi Lin, indeed do have some kind of informal familial relationship in real life. Both of them previously worked as members of Jackie Chan's stunt team, which in Chinese is actually known as Chan's family group. Steel fan. You can see a steel fan here here. Steel fans are bladed fan-like weapons, used by Princess Katana from Mortal Kombat 2 onwards. These ancient bladed fans are Katana's trademark weapon, Descendant. Kung Lao mentions that he's a descendant of the Great Kung Lao, the Grand Champion of the Order of Light. The Great Kung Lao is occasionally referenced in the game series, and featured in the television show Mortal Kombat Conquest as the show's protagonist. He's the ancestor of present-day Kung Lao, Kun Jin, and Liu Kang. Test your might. Liu Kang says all you can do now is test your might. Test your might is a minigame that first appeared in the original Mortal Kombat as an interlude between battles. Similar to breaking, leg sweep. Liu Kang performs a bunch of leg sweeps on Kano, and Kano asks if that's the only move he knows. This is a reference to how leg sweeps were frequently used in the original Mortal Kombat video games. Bo Rai Cho. Liu Kang tells Cole that he was found by Master Bo Rai Cho. Bo Rai Cho is an Outworld-born master of the Drunken Fist. He serves as a major ally to the God of Thunder Raiden, while also being the master of Shaolin monks Liu Kang and Kung Lao. Bo Rai Cho made his playable debut in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. He's been a recurring supporting character throughout the series. Chicago. Cole says that he's an orphan from the south side of Chicago. The developer of the Mortal Kombat video games, Midway Games, was headquartered in Chicago. The headquarters would later be reincorporated as Netherrealm Studios. Cabal. Cabal mentions how Kano is the reason he lives in an iron lung. In the reset timeline of Mortal Kombat 2011, Cabal is shown to be on the side of good by the time of the Outworld invasion, although Kano later attempts to convince him to return to the Black Dragon. It's also revealed that it was Kano who healed Cabal and gave him his respiratory mask. Flawless victory. After killing Nitara, Kung Lao says flawless victory. In the Mortal Kombat series, a flawless victory is a feat achieved by winning a round without the player incurring any damage, including chip damage from blocking, over the course of a round. In most other fighting games, this is usually referred to as a perfect win. Spine. Goro says that it'll tear out Cole's spine. This is a reference to Sub-Zero's iconic spine tear fatality from the Mortal Kombat video games. Your soul is mine. Before sucking out Kung Lao's soul from his body, Shang Tsung says your soul is mine. This is a callback to the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. Void. Raiden teleports the remaining Earthrealm champions into the Void, referenced as a mortal bypass into the heavens. The Void represents the white space of the universe, despite its actual appearance remaining unknown. Pit stage. Jax and Reiko fight on a pit stage. This is a reference to the pit arenas from the Mortal Kombat video games. The pit lies on Shang Tsung's island. Combatants fight on a bridge, suspended over a sea of steel spikes, which is the source of death for anyone unlucky enough to be knocked off. Energy bracelets. Sonya Blade's Arcana is the ability to fire energy blasts from bracelets that appear on her arms. This is a reference to the energy bracelets from the Mortal Kombat video games. The energy bracelets are weapons used by Sonya Blade. In every game she's appeared in, they allow her to shoot out pink ring-like projectiles from her hands that damage her opponent on contact, as well as empower her punching attacks. Get over here. When Scorpion gets released from the Netherrealm, he says get over here. This is one of Scorpion's iconic catchphrases. It was voiced by Ed Boon in the games and both movies from the 90s. Johnny Cage. You can see a poster here for Johnny Cage's movie Citizen Cage Fight for Your Rights, and it says coming soon. This is a reference to the character Johnny Cage. He's an action movie star and martial artist. In the Mortal Kombat games, Johnny Cage is one of the 7 original characters, debuting in the first Mortal Kombat arcade game, and remains one of the most popular characters in the franchise to date. The reason why Johnny Cage wasn't included in this movie is because there were already way too many characters. However, writer Greg Russo confirmed that if he's going to write the sequel, then Johnny Cage will absolutely appear. If we got the chance to make more movies, we wanted to leave ourselves some big characters. We didn't want to blow the whole load in movie 1. There are characters people love. We now have saved to introduce down the road, and those are some of the Easter eggs, references, and hidden details that I was able to find in the Mortal Kombat movie. Did you notice or discover any more that weren't mentioned in this video? If so, be sure to tell me in the comments below. Also, don't forget to check out some of the other Easter egg videos on this channel. What did you think of Mortal Kombat? I personally thought it was pretty decent. The fight scenes were great and it was very fun to watch. I definitely watch the sequel if they made one. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.
Warning, this video contains spoilers for Mortal Kombat. The new Mortal Kombat movie ends on a pretty big cliffhanger. If the film does well, there will definitely be a sequel. In this video, I'll explain everything we know so far about Mortal Kombat 2. Let's get started. First of all, there's the Johnny Cage tease at the end. Johnny Cage is an action movie star and martial artist. He's one of the 7 original characters debuting in the first Mortal Kombat arcade game, and remains one of the most popular characters in the franchise to date. The reason why Johnny Cage wasn't actually in the movie is because there were already enough characters. However, writer Greg Russo stated that Johnny Cage will absolutely appear in the sequel if he's also writing it. Director Simon McQuoid mentioned in an interview with CBR that he would be open to returning for the sequel. There's a lot of treasure in that treasure trove of Mortal Kombat, so there's a lot to work with, and I loved it. So yeah, I'd love to do it again, but it'd need to be the right story and the right move, not just for the sake of it. It would really need to be going in the right direction, but no reason why I wouldn't. We don't think about it that much, to be honest. I don't really like talking about it. Simon McQuoid also discussed the sequel and Johnny Cage in an interview with Variety. Sequels are a bit tricky because you can't totally ignore them, because that wouldn't be a smart move. But none of us use the S word. We'd never talk about it in any depth whatsoever because we feel like we have to put all our energy into this film. That being said, if the fans want another one, that's not for us to decide. That's for the fans to decide. Then we need a couple of joiner pieces that we know can lead us somewhere because there's a treasure trove of stuff that's just sitting there. The reason Johnny Cage is not in this original film is he's such a giant personality that he almost has his own gravitational field. The feeling was that he could throw it out of balance slightly. I get asked about Katana just as much as Johnny Cage. There's a lot of interesting characters, story, and material to work with, so we haven't really dug into it. We just know we're very privileged that's sitting there. If we do get to that, and I'm not saying we will, I'm just saying if big, if then, we'll go down that path. Johnny Cage hasn't been cast yet, but WWE star The Miz wants to play the role. Mortal Kombat creator Ed Boon even supports this. Some other actors up for consideration include James Marsden, Ryan Reynolds, Scott Adkins, and Jensen Ackles. So why wasn't Johnny Cage in the actual movie? Producer Todd Garner explained this in an interview with Screen Rant. Johnny Cage is obviously the elephant in the room, and there's a number of reasons why Johnny Cage was problematic in this particular movie out of the gate. One, he's a very big personality, right? He needs his own space. It's very hard to just throw him in a movie, like I said with Kano. So taking him out was very easy, not only for the movie, but for the sequel. I want to make a sequel, and I've now got Johnny Cage, which hasn't been used in the first one. So I've got a big stick and a carrot, and maybe they'll let me have a Johnny Cage presence in the second one. Secondarily, when you think about Mortal Kombat, and if you just think about the patina of the movie, it has a very Asian feel to it. And early on, I felt uncomfortable having a white male kind of lead the charge in the first movie. It just felt really Hollywoodish to me, which is weird because he's an actor, which is also weird. And then it's probably my bias of how it just feels weird if I'm trying to do something different, diverse, and true. Is it a cop-out to all of a sudden have Ryan Reynolds, not him, but you know, as the lead? It felt a little disingenuous to me. It's super easy to bring him in a big, bombastic, fun way in the second, and he deserves that as a character. I love these characters, so we thought hard about it. Simon McQuoid went on to express that he would like to focus on the female characters in the sequel. I guess I'd like to shift it to be a little more female. There's some fantastic female characters in Mortal Kombat, and I think we can bring balance there to a better extent. A lot of characters died in the first Mortal Kombat movie, but they'll 100% return since death isn't permanent in the Mortal Kombat universe. Simon McQuoid also discussed this. Well, yes, if you just look at the game, it's exactly what the game has done in a really interesting way. I think we can perhaps learn from the games and try to do something interesting again. There's a big asterisk on all this. I think the way they handle timelines and alternative iterations of the same character is really interesting. It doesn't always mean that character comes back. Oh, I've been reincarnated. I'm the same. There's some really interesting evolution and growth of these characters. The experience of death informs who they become. So I guess I don't want death to be something that is inconsequential. That is something I certainly think about as we discuss the story and what that means. So I think there are opportunities there, and certainly Sub-Zero has some opportunities. Furthermore, Josh Lawson said in an interview with Inverse that his character could return in a future movie. I can tell you that me and my agents think it's very possible he can come back. To me, this looks like the beginning of what Kano eventually becomes in the games. I would be disappointed and surprised if we didn't get to watch Kano evolve into what fans really know him to become. Josh Lawson also talked about Kano's return in an interview with Polygon. Even Sang Sung, at the end of the film, says something to the effect of death is just an illusion. Hopefully the point would be that when they come back bigger, badder, harder. And that's what I'm looking forward to, given the chance of a sequel. I would love to see Kano 2.0, because you know, the Kano that we all know and love with the metal plate. I feel like this is really setting that up. Writer Greg Russo mentioned in an interview with CBR that he wrote Mortal Kombat as a trilogy. When I wrote it, I conceived it as a trilogy. I didn't even tell the people I was working with that I was doing it as a trilogy. Just as a writer, you never want to paint yourself into a corner or shut down where your storyline could go. When I was writing the first film, I was always in the back of my mind outlining 2 more, so I always knew where things would go. I would love to come back and explore. There's just so much of the mythology that we didn't have time to get into, but 2 hours is the right length for a first film. But there's also more. There's the Shaolin monks, there's the special forces. There's all these spin-offs that you could see, but in terms of the films, I wanted to make sure there were places we could go and certain realms we barely touched them. For example, Edenia is a realm that I love, and I love all the characters there. Kitana, Sindel, all these great characters. And as much as I wanted to put them in the movie, the story said to wait a minute because that deserves its own time to shine. So don't just jam all these characters in there when it's not done right. And when it came to a character selection, it's all about doing the characters a service. But I would love to write more, and I love to explore more. Additionally, Sub-Zero will get resurrected and become Noob Saibot, which is exactly what happens in the video games. Joe Taslim, the actor who plays Sub-Zero, revealed that he signed a 5-movie contract with the studio. So that means he's contractually obligated to appear in 4 more Mortal Kombat movies. Greg Russo announced in an interview with Polygon that Noob Saibot is a big part of his planned Mortal Kombat trilogy. I knew, introducing Bihan in this movie, that eventually his destiny would be becoming that character. And so I wanted to see his death in this film. And ultimately, I wanted the movie to end with him being portaled out of the Earthrealm to where he's going to become the next iteration of himself. And that was all written. That was scripted. That Bihan goes into the black portal because we know where he's going. The blackness of the portal is just great for the Noob Saibot character. He literally goes into the smoky blackness. The actor who played Sub-Zero, Joe Taslim, has stated in an interview with Screen Rant that he hopes there will be a Sub-Zero spin-off movie. My hope is that I can give justice to Sub-Zero. And I hope people want to see his transformation to become Noob Saibot. I want people to go, oh, that's why. Now I understand why he's Noob Saibot. Because I want to have this journey of him that people follow. And I want people, when they watch the movie, to think and say, I want to see what happened. I want to see the prequel. I want to see what happened to Sub-Zero. I want to see when he got abducted by the Lin Kuei. I want to see his training in the Lin Kuei. This is in the middle of the journey of Sub-Zero, with my expectation to the fans to give them motivation so they want to see more, like a sequel or a prequel, so we can have a full journey of Sub-Zero. That's possibly the goal. That's probably my wish. Moreover, the actual Mortal Kombat tournament still needs to happen. Simon McQuote explained that they decided not to include the tournament in the first movie. The story came out of this idea that we didn't just want to redo the first film. If you look at the Mortal Kombat's evolution over the decades, that has evolved and grown beyond the idea of the tournament. That's obviously essential within the DNA of Mortal Kombat, and it's one of the fundamentals if you look at where the story has gone. The idea of a tournament within a script informs a certain structure and rhythm. We didn't really want to serve that. To serve a tournament idea, you have to build it in a certain way. So it was a couple of reasons that came to playing it out in the way it did. Other than Johnny Cage, which characters could appear in a Mortal Kombat sequel? Well, there's tons of characters who aren't part of the first movie, so any of them could make an appearance in the sequel. For example, Kitana, Shinnok, Cyrax, Shao Kahn, Baraka, Ermac, Quan Chi, Smoke, Jade, Sindel, Frost, Shiva, Nightwolf, and Rain. In an interview with Sci-Fi Wire, Greg Russo described that the sequel will go to other realms beyond Earthrealm and Outworld. In the back of my head, I was always thinking, like, where can I go? Where can the world go so that it's not painted into a corner? One of the realms that I felt like it didn't make sense to introduce in this story because we were so focused on Earthrealm and Outworld was Edenia, which is another big realm in the Mortal Kombat universe. And that has a ton of great characters that reside there. Their storylines intersect there. My favorite character, Kitana, is a princess in Edenia, and it just didn't feel right to bring her in. There's other characters too that people love there, like Sindel and Jade and all those characters. So that's a whole realm that I think is worth exploring. And I have some really cool ideas of what I would do with the storylines there. Greg Russo clarified his Mortal Kombat trilogy plans in an interview with Collider. Movie 1, we were always kind of setting this up as, well, I was setting it up. It's basically in my head. I always saw movie 1 as pre-tournament. Then movie 2 is hopefully tournament. Then movie 3 is post-tournament. So the idea was that this is going to be a pre-tournament movie that would hopefully sow the seeds for a tournament, the final. Everybody was focused on movie 1, right? You don't get a trilogy without it. But as a writer, you should never be painting yourself in a corner. That's my motto. You should always be thinking about where your story can go, even beyond the 2 hours. This is not a lot of time that I have to tell this story. Where else can it go? So I always saw it as leading up to something bigger. And so the idea then became, all right, we have a certain amount of characters we can fit. Don't have the luxury of having individual movies of all these characters. I'm getting thrown right into Avengers mode, which is fun and a challenge. But I knew that there were other characters that I just couldn't get in. And it actually didn't even make sense to bring in yet for the story. So then it became a matter of, well, who's the big characters that we want to save? Because you don't also want to use everything. Johnny's tease at the end, the button, it changed different ways. I remember there were different versions of it. That poster was something that the design team did, which I love. I picked Citizen Cage because I just thought that was hilarious. Fight for your rights. So I picked that and I put it in the script, and then they designed an amazing poster. And then it had lived in other places. So it actually wasn't the button for a while. It was earlier in the story, like they were walking and you just see it in the background. And we felt like that just wasn't enough because you wanted to really hit on it. I remember there was a version for the end where they actually went to the lot. So Cole and Sonia went to the studio lot, and I forget what it even was. They pulled up and they were going to the meeting. It was going to be shot at Warner Brothers, but it just felt like with the pandemic and everything, it got to a point where it was hard to do a lot of that. I love the way that it buttons, and it's simple. And yeah, hopefully we can tell more of the stories. Producer Todd Gardner has revealed a bunch of Mortal Kombat spin-off movies he'd like to see in the future. Todd Gardner also talked about his plans for an extended cinematic universe for Mortal Kombat in an interview with Collider. There are people we can see later. There's also characters that have such complicated backstories with other characters. You want to give them more service. I keep saying I want to do 9 hours of WandaVision in this thing. Whether it's our vision of that, maybe it's just the monks, just Liu Kang and Kung Lao, 9 hours of them. I'm in. There's so much to draw from. So we were trying to be as intelligent as we could to tell a story that you could just come in and sit down and not know what Mortal Kombat is and enjoy it. And by the end, be as big of a fan as the guy who played the game for 30 years and knows everything about everything. There's certain things I would have loved to have had in the movie, and I just couldn't. Costs and practicality and things like that, just going off on a weird tangent for 20 minutes for something that's not to the core of the story. So our goal and our prayer is that this movie does well enough, and we've set it up enough and is satisfying enough for both fans and people who don't know anything about Mortal Kombat, that they're just going to allow us at some point to sit with creators Ed Boon and John Tobias and all the Warner Brother execs and put up a big whiteboard like Kevin Feige did and map out the universe and map out years and years of this. That's my prayer. In addition, the cast members of the Mortal Kombat movie have voiced their opinions, which characters they want to appear in a sequel. Mortal Kombat is already proving to be a big success for the studio, so a sequel is highly likely. Samba TV has reported that Mortal Kombat was HBO Max's most viewed weekend premiere ever at 3.8 million US households. Mortal Kombat drew more viewers in its first weekend than Godzilla vs. Kong did in its first 5 days. And that's everything we know so far. How excited are you for Mortal Kombat 2? Let me know in the comments below. What did you think of Mortal Kombat? I personally thought it was pretty decent. It's not the best video game movie or anything, but the fight scenes were great, and it was very fun to watch. I'd definitely watch the sequel if they made one. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge is a 2020 American direct-to-video adult animated martial arts movie. It's based on the Mortal Kombat franchise. If you're unsure about the ending, then you definitely came to the right place. In this video, I'll explain the ending of Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge. This video will contain spoilers for Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge, so make sure you watch that movie first before watching this video. Anyways, let's get started. So we find out that Quan Chi is actually responsible for killing Scorpion's entire clan, not Sub-Zero. Quan Chi foolishly decides not to kill Scorpion, and this allows Scorpion to remove himself from the spike to get revenge on Quan Chi. Meanwhile, Liu Kang is fighting Goro and is nearly killed. However, he's saved when Scorpion shows up and uses his kunai harpoon to tear out Goro's skull and spine. Shang Tsung tells Scorpion that he needs to fight and kill Liu Kang, but Scorpion takes Shang Tsung hostage and forfeits the fight. This means that Liu Kang has won the tournament and Earthrealm is the victor. Shang Tsung retreats to Outworld and the island begins to collapse. Scorpion and Quan Chi fight, and Scorpion eventually manages to kill Quan Chi. He allows the buildings to collapse on him, and he's presumably killed as well. In the meantime, we see that the Earthrealm heroes have escaped on a nearby boat. In the final scene of the movie, Shang Tsung is tortured by Shao Kahn for failing, and Shao Kahn orders Shang Tsung to make preparations for the invasion of Earthrealm. So what's next for the Mortal Kombat franchise? Well, the purpose of this movie was to tie into the upcoming live-action Mortal Kombat reboot movie, produced by James Wan. That movie is planned to come out on January 15, 2021. Anyways, the ending of Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge definitely sets up a sequel. It seems like Shao Kahn will be the main villain. However, Scorpion most likely won't be the protagonist again. It will probably be Liu Kang. During the boat scene, we saw how Raiden told Liu Kang that his purpose wasn't defeating Goro but Shao Kahn. Maybe we'll see this exact thing happen in the 2021 live-action Mortal Kombat movie. Liu Kang will be played by Chinese-Canadian actor Ludi Lin, who you may know from Power Rangers, Aquaman, and Black Mirror. Also, Raiden will be played by Japanese actor Tadanobu Asano, who you might know as Hogan in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. There hasn't been an actor cast yet for Shao Kahn, but the rumor is that he'll be played by former WWE wrestler Nathan Jones. Furthermore, Shinnok could also make an appearance in the sequel. Before dying, Quan Chi did say that his god would avenge him. The sole reason why Quan Chi brought Scorpion back to life was to steal Shinnok's amulet, so that he could be freed. Shinnok is a disgraced former elder god of death, who was imprisoned in Netherrealm. He wants to get revenge against Raiden for his banishment. Shinnok was the main antagonist of the 2015 game Mortal Kombat 10. again. Additionally, it's very possible that Scorpion didn't actually die, or if he did die, he could be brought back to life again. In the source material, Scorpion has died and been resurrected several times, so death is certainly not permanent in the Mortal Kombat universe. In an interview with Screen Rant, here's what Scorpion's voice actor Patrick Seitz said about Scorpion making a comeback in a sequel. I mean, I think the great thing about this movie is, not only does it do its job, and do service as its own service and moment in the franchise, but certainly it doesn't close the door. I feel to there being any sort of follow-up, there's a big Mortal Kombat world out there. If the stars align and people are digging it, I don't see why they don't keep teasing out some of those threads, and some of those plotlines in more movies. I hope they do. There were also a few cameo appearances in this movie, from notable characters like Kitana and Nitara, so they might have a bigger role in the sequel. Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge got pretty good reviews from critics, and it's certainly a big step up from the previous two live-action Mortal Kombat movies that came out in the late 90s. It doesn't look like the movie had a huge budget either, so as long as it's moderately successful, then I'm sure that a sequel will get made sooner or later. What did you think of Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. I personally thought it was pretty awesome. The action was great, the animation was fantastic, and the voice acting was also really good. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.